Meat rabbits are the best homesteading animal, especially for beginning homesteaders. They're affordable, require little to no outside inputs, and they take very little space and resources. Not to mention, you'll end up with a ton of meat in a short amount of time. No other animal compares to the meat rabbit. You can have rabbits in a shed, garage, deck, balcony, outside, on the grass, in your basement, or even in a spare room in your house if you really want to. I recommend keeping them outside if you can. They are quiet and easy to handle. When you first purchase meat rabbits, you'll want to get 2 females and 1 male. The females are called does and the males are called bucks. My favorite 2 breeds are Californians and New Zealand. They produce big, meaty rabbits. The rabbits should be about 3 months old when you purchase them for breeding purposes. Of course, they can be older. Each rabbit will need their own cage. When I first purchased meat rabbits, I was not prepared. Just as an example, I actually used an old bookshelf and divided it into 3 separate cages, put some wire on top, wire on the bottom, and called it good. Since then, I've learned a lot and my cages have developed over time. The best size for each cage is 24 inches wide, 30 inches long, and 18 inches tall. It doesn't have to be exactly those dimensions, but having them be around those dimensions will help because I think it gives ample room for each rabbit to feel comfortable. For the size of the cages, I like to use 1 inch by 1 inch wire. The bottom of each cage should be 1 inch by ½ inch hardware cloth. This is better for them to sit and walk on. You do not need a wooden board for them to stand on. When I've done this in the past, they end up not using it. Sometimes they just end up pooping on it, and sometimes even just chewing it to pieces and just disregarding the board altogether. It's kind of just a waste of space. Rabbits are perfectly fine standing on 1 inch by ½ inch hardware cloth. Any smaller than this, their droppings may struggle to fall through. Any bigger than this, then their feet are extremely uncomfortable. For your 2 females and 1 male, I would suggest building 4 individual cages that are connected or near one another. You're only going to need 3 cages most of the time. The 4th cage is what I would call a grow-out pen for the little babies once they reach a little bit more maturity and are ready to move away from their mothers. For each individual cage, you'll want your own steel feeder. That's where the pellets are going to go. And you'll also want a water bottle with a metal nipple. For the colder months, you can use heated rabbit water bottles. I've used these in the past and they work great. Some people have mentioned having bad experiences with heated water bottles. I have yet to experience that. Feeding your rabbits pellets will ensure they remain healthy. Meat rabbits are different from wild rabbits. Meat rabbits need more than just grass and other natural vegetation, although they can have that in addition to the pellets you feed them. Each adult meat rabbit should eat around 1 cup of pellets every day. To protect your rabbits from the elements, use a metal roof and then wrap a tarp around the cages to protect them from the wind. This is especially important during the winter months. Now that you have your 2 females and 1 male, let's talk about breeding. To breed your rabbits, bring one of the females to the male's cage. Females are territorial. Do not bring a male to a female's cage. Leave the female in the cage for up to 5 minutes. Keep an eye on them as fighting can sometimes happen, although it's rare. With your other female, place her in the male's cage about 15 days later. You can do it the same day, but I recommend rotating. That way you don't have so many baby rabbits born all at the same time. It also means you won't have that many rabbits to butcher all at once either. 28 to 30 days after being bred, your female rabbit will deliver baby rabbits. You can expect, in a good litter, 8 to 12 babies, and that is going to be plenty, especially starting out. For this, you'll want to create a nesting box. Nesting boxes are really important because that's where the mother is going to give birth to the baby rabbits. It's going to help protect them from the elements, and it's just going to be a safe, nice little place for the babies to grow up, especially in the first 2 to 3 weeks. The boxes should be about 10 inches wide, 10 inches tall, and 18 inches long. You want to use 1 inch lumber, and that's going to ensure that it's strong enough, not flimsy, and offer protection from the elements. 26 days after the female has been bred, place the nesting box in her cage off to one side so it's not in her way. You'll know she's ready to give birth because she'll start pulling off the fur on her chest, then placing that fur she's pulled off her chest into the nesting box. This is what keeps the baby rabbits warm. She does not crawl into the nesting box to keep them warm. The only reason a mother rabbit goes into the nesting box is to feed her young about 2 times a day. Before she pulls her fur off of her chest, what you can do is lay down some straw or some shavings to put on the bottom that'll help insulate the box, especially during those cold winter months. In a matter of a few weeks, the baby rabbits, after they're born, will start jumping out of the box and eventually feeding on the pellets you put in the metal container. They'll also start drinking water from the water bottle that has a nipple on it. Rabbits you plan on butchering for meat are called fryers. Once you consistently see them feeding on pellets and drinking water, it's time to move them to their own area. For this, you basically have 2 options. You can move them to their own cage, or you can put them in a portable rabbit shelter on grass. This is what I normally do during the summer when we have a lot of grass in the yard to use, but during the winter you'll need to put them in a cage to keep them out of the elements. Portable shelters work best for growing out young rabbits because they can eat the grass, and of course it's a really cheap way of keeping your rabbits having a better healthy lifestyle and not confining them to a smaller area. All my shelters that I use for the rabbits out on grass are 2 feet tall, 4 feet wide, and 8 feet long. They're all this exact same dimension because I want to be able to put them in the back of a pickup truck or a standard size trailer. One person can easily move a portable rabbit shelter of this size. It does not require 3 or 4 people to move this. So it's very, very light, portable, and it's just going to make your life easier. As the fryers are growing, you'll want to provide them with continuous pellets, 24/7 feed. Make sure their feeder always stays full. This is how you'll get them to butcher weight by 3 months. Make sure to attach a 2-inch by 4-inch field fencing on the bottom of their portable shelter. The top can just be a metal roof, but the bottom needs to be 2-inch by 4-inch field fencing. This protects the rabbits from predators digging underneath like a fox. It also keeps them in their cages because sometimes rabbits can dig to get themselves out. With the 2-inch by 4-inch field fencing, this also allows some grass to grow through, so it's a win-win-win. Move the shelter to new grass each morning. You don't want to keep it in one spot too long. The manure is going to build up, their urine's going to build up, and they're just going to be walking on it all the time. The fryers you're growing should be butchered around 3 months of age. That's your goal. By 3 months, the rabbits are usually large enough to get a good amount of meat and still young enough for more tender meat. If you have a rabbit that goes over 3 months of age, that's fine, but just realize the older a rabbit gets, usually the tougher the meat becomes. When it comes to butchering your fryers, there are far too many ways and techniques to describe. I suggest looking up the way that works best for you. You will find many excellent videos online to help you with this. Before you butcher your rabbits, I would suggest you make the decision of what you're going to do with them at that time. You can keep them, fill up your own freezer, you can give them away, you can sell them, or you can do all 3. But please plan accordingly, because you don't want to end up with way too many rabbits that you don't know what to do with. After your fryers have been butchered, vacuum seal them in bags and start loading up your freezer. Eventually, once it gets too full, you may need to sell some. If you like to sell some, it is a little bit more tricky than chickens because there is not a huge market for selling meat rabbits, at least not in the United States. When I tell people that I have meat chickens for sale, they go pretty quick. When I tell people I have rabbits for sale, not many people show interest. The good thing with rabbits is it only takes a few people that are going to continually come back and ask you for more and more rabbit meat after they started buying rabbits from you initially. So get the word out. Talk to people at your church, at your job, when you go to community events, you can advertise online. The good news is you can load up your freezer and you have a lot of meat for you and your family. One thing you need to remember is that rabbits can breed all year long. That does not mean you have to breed them all year long. Maybe you take the winter off. Some people in southern states take the summers off because it simply gets too hot. There is no time of the year that your rabbit production would really necessarily need to slow down unless it does get too hot. Most domesticated animals have better birthing seasons. I've had rabbits give birth in the middle of January in Wisconsin, when the average temperature is in the low single digits Fahrenheit or around 0. You can do it under the right circumstances as long as they're protected and you've got good, healthy rabbits taking care of their young. Believe it or not all rabbits are created equal. Let's talk about the 3 reasons you may have to cull your rabbits. Cull is a simple word for get rid of. Reason number 1, they can be aggressive. This is rare, but rabbits can actually demonstrate aggressive behavior, especially with the females since they're territorial. You'll notice that they're aggressive if you open their cage and they kind of charge out at you, take their front paws and put them together and go toward you, and sometimes even show their teeth. It's rare, but it happens. those rabbits need to go. Number 2, the females are bad mothers. I once had a female that gave birth to her young all over the cage. She gave birth not in her nesting box, but literally anywhere except her nesting box. By the time I found the babies, they were already dead. They were not placed down where she put her fur in the nesting box, so that's something you cannot tolerate. Unfortunately, I did, and I allowed her to give birth again, and the same exact thing happened. Chances are, if your mother is bad the first time, she's going to be bad the second time. Number 3, they aren't always procreating properly. An older male will breed a female, but she might not get pregnant. As a result, you'll need to replace him. You can find a home for these animals for free on Craigslist. People are looking for pets, or if you like to butcher it for meat, that's also another option for you. Another thing that happens with procreation is that the female, she can get old, and she may start to have smaller and smaller litter sizes. You want to replace her with a younger female. Any litter size, in my opinion, that's smaller than 8 kits on average, a kit is just a baby rabbit, that's too small. Taking care of 4 babies, for me, is just as much work as taking care of 10. It doesn't really make it more work, it just means that you're getting little return for your effort. You want big litters to make your time worthwhile. Rabbits are cold hardy, something to consider. They will be just fine left outside as long as you keep them from harsh weather. Here in Wisconsin, I've had them survive year after year through the winter months. All I do is make sure I've got a metal roof on top to protect them from the rain and the snow, and then I put a tarp around them on the colder days or throughout the winter months to keep them out of the wind. If you keep rabbits dry and you keep them from too much wind, they'll do just fine. Another thing to consider with rabbits is they don't like the light, particularly direct sunlight, so have a shaded opportunity. In the winter, I like to have them facing the sun so that warms up their cage area. In the summer, I like to have them on the north side of a building or out of the direct sun so they don't get too hot. Please let me know if you have any questions. Put those down in the comments. If you have additional advice or things that other people can learn right here on the channel, I greatly appreciate it. Till next time, we'll see you later. Thanks for watching.